Hello and welcome to The Print. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's decision to pick Russia for his first official visit overseas since assuming a third term is strategically important and carries significant messaging for other players on the world stage as well. In the past, Modi has looked towards the neighbourhood as his first port of call upon assuming the prime ministership. But this time, choosing Russia is a first. Incidentally, the last time an Indian Prime Minister picked Moscow as his first foreign visit was in 1985, when Rajiv Gandhi travelled to Soviet Russia. This will be the first time in nearly a decade that Modi will travel to the city of Moscow. He had visited Russia in 2019, but that was to Vladivostok. Earlier this week, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov remarked that no topic is off limits when PM Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin meet next week. Vladimir Putin is also expected to host a private dinner with Modi upon his arrival. The visit will also resume the annual India-Russia summit, which has been on ice since the war in Ukraine began. And the last time the summit was held was in December 2021, when Putin visited India for its 21st edition. Now, Modi will be in Russia from 8th to 9th July and then head to Austria from the 9th to the 10th. The Ministry of External Affairs held a briefing on Friday about what's on the agenda for these two visits. Defense, trade, investment, energy cooperation, the Gaza war and of course the Ukraine conflict will be on the cards when Modi and Putin hold high-level talks. Banking, space and civil nuclear cooperation as well as connectivity projects will also be hot topics. Also the issue of Indians trapped in Russia, this is very important. They were forced into a war front with Ukraine and a lot of them fell for fake job scams. This is an issue that is definitely going to be discussed at the highest levels. 4 Indians have died on the war front so far after falling for fraudulent recruitment schemes, and the Indian government is working to bring those stranded there back. The Ministry of External Affairs has maintained that it is pressing hard with Russia for early discharge of Indians duped into fighting in Ukraine, and Modi is also expected to bring this up with Putin. India has demanded a halt to any further recruitment of Indian nationals by the Russian army, and in fact last month a sternly worded statement from the MEA said such activities would not be in consonance with our partnership with Russia. Sources have also told ThePrint that this issue could have links to potential human trafficking, and therefore identifying which Indian nationals are in the Russian army will be a task in itself. India estimates, however, that there are between 30 and 40 of its citizens that could be serving in the Russian army. The Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra told a press briefing on Friday. On the issue of defense, discussions between Modi and Putin will likely touch upon the transfer of technology to offset the delay in supplying spare parts to the Indian military, which is now beginning to hurt from it. Keep this in mind because this is going to be an important nugget of information when we discuss the strategic significance of this visit. Rupee-ruble trading in one's national currency will also be a likely talking point when Modi and Putin meet. And Moscow is currently having to decide what to do with large amounts of Indian rupees it has accumulated in the country on account of energy exports to India. Since last year, India and Russia have been discussing ways for Russia to use the surplus rupees through business deals, maritime corridors or government securities, or simply just investing in India. Now, what's the strategic messaging behind a visit like this? It's a really good question, and experts and people familiar with the matter try to answer this. One thing they brought up is that this visit is to ensure the Russia-China alliance does not hurt India's interests. And it also comes amid a fluid moment in international affairs where all eyes are on the US, which may see a potential change in the White House. Engaging with Russia and ensuring its alliance with China doesn't work against India's interests is definitely an important factor. Sources cited the deepening of the Russia-China military relationship, potential advanced technology sharing, and also the sharing of intelligence could be factors that may work against India's interests. Yet there are no indicators to substantiate these fears, according to 2 former Indian ambassadors to Russia that ThePrint spoke to. And they also made a very important critical point. They said sanctioned Russia may have its own compulsions in cozying up to China, but India should be wary of hyphenating the two because one is India's adversary and one is not. You can read more about this in my report, which we will add in the description of this video. Now, Russia has been a steadfast partner of India's. In 2017, top Russian official Sergei Chemezov, CEO of Rostec State Corporation, said Russia would always be India's strategic partner, despite its growing military purchases from the US, France, and Israel. And he even said there are certain defense technologies that no one else will give India except Russia. Let's also rewind to June 2020, days after the Galwan Valley clash, when Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited Moscow to attend the 75th Victory Day parade, during which he concluded a defence deal to purchase 33 fighter jets from Russia and other arms upgrades amounting to $2.4 billion. And clearly this irked the Chinese. Ahead of the visit, Chinese state-owned media outlet People's Daily had issued a post on Facebook discouraging Russia from supplying arms to India. Russia has also been a key player amid tensions between India and China. It was in September 2020 in Moscow that Rajnath Singh met his Chinese counterpart on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Ministers meeting. This was the first direct face-to-face talks between India and China since border tensions erupted in May that year. Let's also look, however, to what message this may send the West. On 9th July, while Modi will be in Russia, dozens of world leaders will convene in Washington, D.C. for the NATO 75th Anniversary Summit. And one of those world leaders will be Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But according to C. Raja Mohan, professor at the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore, the timing of Modi's visit to Russia isn't all that surprising, and in fact, it might make a lot of sense if we delve further into it. He told me there is currently a fluid moment in international relations, and the prospect of Donald Trump's return to the White House has triggered a crisis mode in many countries, and therefore Prime Minister Modi's decision to visit Moscow and engage with a major power at a time of uncertainty makes sense. The US presidential elections, which will take place in November, will see US President Joe Biden seek a second term against his Republican rival Donald Trump. I want to also talk about energy cooperation really quick. Amid the Ukraine war, as you know, India ramped up its imports of Russian crude oil despite US and European Union sanctions. And US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti recently clarified that India's purchases of Russian oil don't amount to a violation. So in a way, India has been able to walk that tightrope between the West and Russia. And let's see how this pans out after Modi's visit to Russia. According to Rajoyshi Roy, Associate Fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, or the IDSA, Modi's upcoming visit to Moscow reinforces the importance of Russia in India's geostrategic calculus. And it will also be an opportunity to reassess the trajectory of ties. It is in India's interest to try to wean Russia away from China by adding more pillars to the mutually beneficial bilateral relationship and by staying relevant in each other's foreign policy priorities, he told ThePrint. Russia remains an important player in Central Asia, Iran, China, and Pakistan. And according to Dr. Roy, its actions can have a bearing on India's interests in these countries and regions too. Modi's visit to neighbouring Austria after Russia will also be important. This will be a first by an Indian PM in 41 years, according to Pawan Kapoor, Secretary West at the MEA. Business, innovation and tech will form the major pillars of discussion when Modi meets Austrian President Alexander Van der Bellen.